Hey guys, John B here from PhoneArena. Right now you're watching our in-depth video review of the HTC DROID DNA for Verizon Wireless. It's priced at $200, and the cool thing about this guy, it's one of the first out there to feature a 1080p high-definition display, 5 inches in size, and it is a Super LCD 3 panel. It has also all the other great qualities of making it a premier smartphone. For example, you have a quad-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 processor in there. You have 2 GB of RAM. You have an 8-megapixel autofocus camera in the rear with an f2.0 lens, and also has 4G LTE connectivity. So we're going to find out whether or not this bad boy is going to be the handset to own this coming holiday season. So right away, we take notice of its svelte construction and its lightweight feel in the hand. It's only 4.87 ounces in weight, so it's pretty good and manageable, especially for a device having a 5-inch display. On top of that, it's only 38 hundredths of an inch thick, so it's pretty skinny in terms of its figure, and it looks skinnier than what it looks like just because of the tapered design of the handset, similar to what we see on the HTC 8X. Towards the edges here, you see a slight taper there, but still a very attractive looking device. It has a nice industrial design, pretty much similar to other HTC handsets we've seen of late, but definitely different from the One X series here. It has a soft touch coating in the rear, gives it a nice clean appearance, and even though it has a 5-inch display, it's a lot more manageable to hold compared to some other things like the LG Intuition or even the Galaxy Note 2, but it's still a beefy handset, but it's definitely nice, solid construction, nice accents to it, makes it a really nice looking handset. Needless to say, would have been content with a 720p display, but HTC sets the pace with this guy. The DROID DNA features a 5-inch 1080p Super LCD 3 display, so its resolution is 1080 by 1920 pixels. So when you do the math, that actually equates to a pixel density of 440 pixels per inch, which is just mind-blowing. So it's one of the sharpest looking displays out there. Now for things like here in the app panel, you could tell the text there. We're not able to notice a difference between this and say a 720p display, but it's most evident in the web browser when you're in zoomed out view. It's just a really impressive at how sharp looking it is, even fine details, more than legible. And on top of that, seeing that it is a Super LCD 3 panel, agreed to some natural looking colors, more neutral side, as opposed to the overly saturated tones typical amongst AMOLED displays. And when you combine the fact that it has some fantastic viewing angles and a strong brightness output, its outdoor visibility is really superior, so you're not going to have any issues even in direct sunlight. But even though it has Gorilla Glass 2 on here, it's still not impervious to damages or scratches just because we did drop it, and we do notice just a small scratch right there in the top right. So even though this handset's running Jelly Bean, still features the typical trio of Android capacitor buttons. They're kind of spaced away from one another, but they're closer to the edge, so there's at times a little bit of accidental presses. As we've noted already, we like the red accents all around the handset, and shows here with the narrow earpiece. Next to that, you have the front-facing 2.1 megapixel camera, which has the ability to shoot HD videos, but more importantly, just like the HTC 8X, it has a wide-angle 88-degree lens, so you could get more friends into the shot with you. So the left edge is completely clean, but we still like the pattern it has here on the side. Well, on the right, we find the same pattern design, but we also have the volume control, which has a metallic shimmer to it. Unfortunately, it's rather flush to the surface, so it's difficult to make out. Likewise, we could say the same thing about its dedicated power button. It's placed right here on the top in the middle. It's flat, and its response not as ideal as we'd like. Next to it, you have the 3.5mm headset jack, the micro SIM slot right there, and a noise cancellation microphone. And on the bottom edge, we find the other microphone, and behind the plastic flap right here is the micro USB port for charging data connectivity and video out. I would have preferred some sort of sliding mechanism as opposed to this plastic flap. And finally, in the rear, we find its 8-megapixel autofocus camera, which features an f2.0 lens, the LED flash, and 1080p high-definition video recording. It's nice that the camera itself is flush to the surface, unlike the HTC One X, which is sticking out from the surrounding area. And nearby, it's kind of hard to make it out, but there is an LED notification light right there. While on the bottom, you have some microdots, which makes out its internal speaker grill, and does feature Beats audio, so you have that going for it. And finally, there's no access to its internal battery, nor is there any expandable storage, but it doesn't come included with 16GB of memory. It's great knowing that the HTC DROID DNA is running Android 4.1 Jelly Bean out of the box, so you have cool things like Google Now available with it. And on top of that, you have the Sense 4.0 Plus experience, so you have that rich level of personalization that you'd find in any HTC device. And of course, it has all the very cool looking widgets, a lot better done than compared to some of its rivals out there. But when you look over the presentation, the visuals, they haven't really improved upon the features and functionality found with the experience. Taking into account that it's packing a 1080p display, you know it needs something powerful to actually perform well. And that's what we find here with the HTC DROID DNA. It's packing a quad-core 1.5 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro processor with 2 GB of RAM. As far as overall performance, it's very good, nice and smooth, but not as snappy compared to the LG Optimus G. We definitely notice with more processor-intensive tasks like here, like a live wallpaper, for example, we do notice just a tiny bit of a choppiness, but it's not bad at all. Other basic tasks, for example, opening up applications, if you're going to be checking out the gallery, looking at pictures, playing videos, stuff like that, kinetic scrolling, it pretty much maintains that level of response we'd find on any high-end device out there. But for more processor-intensive stuff, like that live wallpaper or playing games, you might see a little bit of a stutter every now and then, but for the most part, we're pretty content with it. With the new Sense 4.0 Plus experience, we're going to a new keyboard layout here on the DROID DNA. Now, it's kind of bunched up as far as the buttons are concerned. There's barely any spacing between one of them. So even though we might have some accidental presses, luckily it has a great autocorrect feature, so it manages to keep us at a good rate of input. On top of that, you have a very responsive nature of the keyboard, so it's not a problem using. And we do like the fact that we're given access to a bunch of different characters and numbers directly from the main layout. Even before checking it out, we kind of had a feeling that this is going to be a great device for surfing the web just because you have 4G LTE connectivity for fast data speeds. It manages to load up our website here very quickly. And on top of that, with its 1080p high-resolution display, it just gives that added level of sharpness to everything to it. It loads pages fast, has nice fluid navigational controls, it does proper rendering, and on top of that, it automatically reflows text to fit the length of the page, so it's more than ideal for the occasion. Checking out the music player on the DROID DNA, it's a very familiar layout and styling, doesn't really differentiate from the previous Sense experience out there, but nevertheless, pleasant looking, more than functional at its core, and the handset does feature amplifiers for both its 3.5mm headset jack and its rear speaker. So as far as the audio quality, it's surprisingly strong with no distortion at the loudest volume setting, so more than pleasant. And of course it features Beats audio, so you really get those strong bass tones when you use headphones. As I mentioned earlier, the new Sense 4.0 Plus experience brings forth an updated gallery interface. Now, in addition to your stored content, it'll aggregate stuff from Facebook, Flickr, and even Picasa. So instead of viewing it in your normal albums view here, it now has the option of doing it by events, so it listed by dates. And seeing that there's geotagging enabled, you could see on the map where you shot those photos. But beyond that, nothing different about it. So when you select an album, select the photo, you could view through your content. And of course, you have some minor editing options available with it. With its massive size and 1080p resolution, those are the two ingredients that make a great video watching experience, and when you throw in the fact that it has a quad-core processor to handle playing video smoothly, it just makes everything soundly superb. So the video we have here is encoded in Exvid 1920 by 1080 resolution, moving very fluidly with its rate. On top of that, some nice vibrant looking colors to make it pop. You could take a quick snapshot right now if you want to, and you could also adjust the brightness. But unfortunately though, it doesn't have support for DivX out of the box, but does support other codecs like Xvid, MPEG-4, and even H.264. So here's the camera UI of the HTC DROID DNA, and it's just like what we've seen before. The great thing about it is that it has a ton of different manual controls and even shooting modes, so you could adjust a variety of different things, whether it be the resolution, ISO, the image adjustments, white balance. You have just a good amount of options available for you. The shutter key is on the right hand side, as well as the video recording button. You could shoot video and then also simultaneously take photos if you'd like. You could obtain a digital zoom by doing a pinch gesture. And of course you also have touch focus, so it adjusts the focus and even exposure at the same time. The other thing is it also has a timer available for using the front-facing camera, so automatically will snap a shot for you. Gotta say, the HTC DROID DNA takes some nice looking photos with its 8 megapixel autofocus camera, which features an f2.0 lens. So it's going to be pretty good in terms of low lighting quality. In that scenario, it may just brighten up the shots with a good amount of detail, but at the expense of exhibiting some noise and graininess. But the LED flash, of course, does a good job in actually counteracting some of those deficiencies. But overall, it's a well-rounded performer in almost pretty much every lighting conditions, whether it be outdoors, plenty of sun, or even indoors with some artificial lighting. It maintains a good amount of details, and on top of that, some natural looking colors. Furthermore, we're very pleased with the handset's 1080p high-definition video recording quality. There's a lot to like about it. Specifically, it moves at a steady rate of 30 frames per second. It has nice natural-looking colors. The exposure is a gradual side, and its continuous autofocus is really fast too. It doesn't take long for it to adjust on the fly. There are only two distractions that we have. Number one being the hint of artifacting going on when you're panning quickly, but it's a lot more prevalent in low lighting conditions and also noisier. And the other one being just its audio recording quality. It's just a little bit too mute. On other 4G LTE devices we've checked out from Verizon, we noticed that it would drop LTE connection, also especially indoors, but with the DROID DNA, we're happy to report that's not an issue. In fact, during our time testing it out, it didn't drop it once, nor did it drop any phone calls as well. Unfortunately, its battery life is very much like any other 4G LTE smartphone from Verizon we've checked out. Fully charging its 2020 mAh battery, we're able to tap out at the 10-hour mark with our normal usage. Now that's connected via 4G LTE. If you're going to be using it with EVDO, of course, you're going to get longer battery life, but there's nothing really special about its performance. Priced at $200 with the tier contract, there's a lot to love about the HTC DROID DNA, and it's definitely a premier smartphone every way, and something you want to take into consideration this upcoming holiday season. So it has a killer ingredient of having a nice looking design with some beefy specs under the hood to really make it a compelling offering. You have that 5-inch 1080p Super LCD CD3 display that is really sharp and detailed, unmatched compared to anything else out there that we've seen. And you also have the Snappy quad-core processor in tow. It takes some nice photos and videos, but there are a couple things that we wish to see some improvements on. For example, it only has 16 gigabytes of internal storage, and there's no way to expand that, so you're stuck with it. It's definitely a well-rounded smartphone and something you want to think about picking. So if you want to learn more about the HTC DROID DNA, guys, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. This is John V. Thanks for watching.